Hello and welcome to Interviewing Essentials. My name is Dr. Erin Charlins and I'll be your host for this workshop. A little bit about me. I've been working at San Diego City College for over a decade as a professor and counselor. Prior to entering into San Diego City College, I worked in the private industry as a staffing manager. I was responsible for recruitment and selection, so lots of interviewing experience. So let's get started. Presentation overview. So I'd like to talk to you about the purpose of interviews, the three phases of interviews, so the invitation, the meeting itself, and any follow-up that might be necessary. As a bonus, I'd like to give you some additional interviewing tips and talk to you a little bit more about interviewing etiquette. Interview purpose. So I've actually chosen this picture very intentionally. And you'll notice there it's a two-way street. Interviews truly are a two-way street. And it's important to know this because interviewing can be awkward. It can be uncomfortable. But when you're keeping in mind that you're interviewing them and they're interviewing you, sometimes it can take the pressure off. So for the employer, oftentimes they've already reviewed your resume. Sometimes you may have had a phone screen, but the employer truly is looking to further assess your skills and qualifications, as well as your motivation to do this work and fit for the department and also fit for the organization. For you as a prospective employee, your job is to share and learn as much as possible to determine if the job and the organization are a good fit for you. Are they a good fit for your values, your interests, your skills, your needs? All of those kinds of things. So remember, interviewing is actually a two-way street. All right, so you received an invitation to interview. Now what? Let's talk about interview preparation. The very first thing you want to do to prepare for your interview is gather information about the interview. Who, what, when, where, how? Are there any other important details? So I'm going to pause here for a second to make this point. Interview preparation is everything. Success is found in preparation. Before you get off the phone with the hiring manager, before you end your email communication, make sure you know who you're interviewing with, where, when. If there's any other important information you're supposed to know, find it out then. You might ask about parking. Is the building difficult to find? Is there a landmark that you should know about? Just as many questions as you can ask in advance that are relevant to showing up on this day to make you less nervous, the better. The next thing you're going to want to do is research. You're going to research both the organization and also the position. You want to get to know who is this organization? What are their values? What's their history? Where have they been? Where are they going? Who are their competitors? Can you get your hands on an annual report? Do they have a parent company? Where are they located? Do they have multiple locations? How many employees do they have? Who are their competitors? Google the company. Find out as much information as you can. Are there articles that have been written about the organization? Who's their leadership? Is there leadership on social media? Is there leadership on LinkedIn? Is the company on LinkedIn? Are they on Twitter? Start to follow them so you can really get a true understanding of who they are. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to research the position. Review that job description very, very carefully. Is there a particular language that they're using? Perhaps in the industry that you've come from, you speak about things this way, but in this particular industry, while the job might be similar, the language they use is different, and you might need to familiarize yourself with that. Researching the position allows you to truly understand what your potential job duties are going to be, and as a bonus, true bonus, you can actually anticipate interview questions by researching the position and the job description. So oftentimes you can take the bullet points that might be listed as the job description or job duties, flip those around, and sometimes those will be your exact interview questions. Stay tuned for a little bit more information on predicting interview questions. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to do some reflection. So again, you've just researched the job description, you've just researched the organization. I want you to reflect on your skills and experience that are both directly and indirectly related to the position. So you're going to have to do some brainstorming here. And this next bullet point, you'll notice I'm calling it mapping. And I'm going to come back to mapping in just a moment. Once you've done some reflection, you can actually really start to predict some things. You can predict interview questions. And let me just tell you a quick little bonus tip. In the many years that I've interviewed and the many times that I've been interviewed, Questions almost always come up in these key categories. They're listed here: teamwork, communication, conflict, multitasking, how do you work under pressure? And almost always you're going to be asked questions about your strengths and weaknesses. So let's go back to that concept of mapping that I just spoke about. So if you look on the side of your screen there, you'll notice I've got those 4 main areas bulleted out there. So you'll see teamwork, communication, conflict, and your ability to multitask or work under pressure. So what I've done is I've brainstormed and I've thought about what experience might I have. Again, if I'm newly entering into the job field with not a lot of experience, I might be focusing more on my experiences from school, your academic experiences, working on projects where you've collaborated. Maybe you're going to include some of that. If you've got more job experience, you might actually go for some of that professional experience and list that there. Either way, I want you to be mapping what are some of those skills that you see in the job description. Again, some of those key areas: teamwork, communication, conflict, and working under pressure. And I want you to map those things to the various experiences that you've had. This is going to help you so much as far as confidence is concerned. You're going to walk in knowing that you actually do possess the skills and experience necessary to get this job. The other thing besides interviewing questions that you can predict is you can begin to predict any concerns or reservations that your potential employer might have. Perhaps there's a bit of a mismatch between the job description and your skills and experience. Gaps in employment. Think about those things. What are potential concerns and reservations that that employer might have? Put yourself in their shoes. Because once you can predict any reservations that they have, you can also start to predict and prepare, rather, how you're going to respond to those. Which is the next step: plan. Plan your responses to those predicted interview questions. Again, you reviewed the job description very carefully. You've reviewed the job duties. You've done some mapping. You know where your skills are in alignment and where there might be some gaps. Prepare how you're going to respond to any questions that you're able to predict. I have some really good advice. I want you to think of 5 things that you want this employer to know about you. 5 things. This is really, really useful. I've used it in so many interviews. Again, you can't always predict all of the interview questions, but what you can do is prepare and be prepared to share about what you want them to know about you. So before your interview even starts, I want you to think of 5 things that you want this employer to know about you. Think of achievements, challenging situations you've overcome on the job, things related to leadership, and so forth. Write those things down. You can actually bring them with you to the interview. Because chances are, a question that they're going to ask, one of those 5 things is probably going to be an appropriate response. You're going to be able to plug that right in there and respond to that question. So again, you're going to have to listen really carefully, but think of those 5 things, have them ready to go, because chances are you're going to be able to pull from them and use them to respond to the questions. You want to plan your responses to concerns and reservations. I just mentioned that. You also want to plan your look. What are you going to wear? How is your hair going to be? What kind of accessories might you wear? What kind of shoes might you wear? And I'm going to go a step further and actually suggest that you do a dry run of this. Put the clothes on that you plan to wear. Tie your hair back or prepare your hair in the way that you think you will for the interview. I'm not sure if any of you are like me, but I've actually had moments where I've been preparing for an interview and the pants that I thought fit me, they no longer fit. The button was broke. The jacket that I thought was dry cleaned was wrinkled. So there's nothing like added stress on the day of an interview. Not necessary. Plan these things well in advance and do a dry run. And the next thing I'm going to suggest that you do is practice. Do a mock interview with a friend, a family member, or a mentor. Pick that person who is actually going to give you the most critical and the most honest feedback. Now is not the time to go to your yes friend, the one that's just going to support you in everything that you do. We need those friends. But for the purpose of a practice interview, find the friend that's going to actually give you the most critical feedback and really hold that mirror up to you. Speaking of mirrors, I'm going to suggest that you actually practice in a mirror. It's best to do a mock interview with a friend if you can, but if you can't, and also in addition, plan to practice in the mirror. Again, you should have a pretty good idea of some of the questions that are going to be asked of you. Practicing in the mirror allows you an opportunity to see what you look like, to hear what you sound like actually as you're going through your interview. I would actually suggest recording yourself even. As I'm doing right now. You have a chance to see, are there any mannerisms that you might have that might be a little bit funny for an interview? Do you say a lot, which I actually do? Are there things that you can pick up? So again, the goal of this is to be as prepared as possible. Another thing I want to mention as you're practicing, practice out loud. It's really important. I never want the first time that you say something to be in the interview. Things often sound different in your mind than when they come out of your mouth. So whenever possible, practice out loud. We're almost done with interview preparation, I promise. Finally, the last couple of things, you want to confirm your logistics. So review the details of your interview at least 24 to 36 hours prior to your interview. If there are any questions that you have, if you realize you forgot to ask something, now's your chance. Review the travel details. Who are you going with? Are you driving yourself? How will you get there? When will you get there? My suggestion is that you plan to arrive to the vicinity about 30 minutes prior. Again, you want to give yourself time for traffic and all of those kinds of things, but plan to arrive to the office area about 10 to 15 minutes prior to your interview. In my honest opinion, somebody who arrives right at 9 o'clock for their interview, they're just about late. Plan to get there about 10 to 15 minutes before. Last thing you want to do is you want to prepare your materials. Again, it sounds odd that this is the last thing. You've already prepared your resume. They've seen your resume, and that's probably how you got in the door to get an interview. But be sure that your resume, if there's anything last minute you thought to update, update it then. Bring several copies of your resume. Make sure, of course, they have a copy machine, no doubt, in the organization, but bring enough copies of the resume for everyone. Bring a notebook, bring several pens. Sometimes your pen might not work, but you might want to take important notes. And you don't want to be asking for a pen as you're showing up for an interview. If you want to bring any mints, your mouth can often get dry as you're preparing for an interview. You might need to bring change or a credit card. Again, it's important to know, is there a parking structure that you're going to be parking in? Do you need coins to park on the street, or do you need a credit card to swipe? Those are things that are just going to help relieve some stress the day of. If it's going to be a long day for you, again, you've asked some questions, you know that, this is an interview panel, it's going to go on all day. Bring food, bring snacks, bring water so that you can remain comfortable and keep your energy up throughout the day.